So we are going to spend some time subtracting fractions today. As you're going to see, subtracting fractions is going to be exactly identical to adding fractions, and the only difference is going to be is that in step 3, you're going to subtract instead of adding. But as you can see right here, your 5 rules are going to be to find a common denominator, either using your LCM or multiplying your denominators. You're going to rename your fractions using the common denominator. You're going to subtract the numerators left to right. You're going to keep your denominators the same, and you're going to reduce the lowest terms. So, as always, remember, if you see it on here, you need to write it down unless I tell you otherwise. So you need to copy these rules down for subtracting fractions by pausing the video. Okay, so moving on, keeping those rules in mind, we are going to start with subtracting fractions. Okay. We'll start with 6/8 minus 1/4. Right. So remember, my first rule tells me that I need to find a common denominator, and I can use LCM or multiply by denominators. Well, as I look, I know that 8 and 4 seem to probably have some common multiples. So my multiples of 4 and 8 are 4, 8, 12. Oh, I already see it right there, but I'll list 8 just to be safe. So these are my LCMs right here. So LCM is 8. Okay, so I need to change or rename these two fractions over the denominator of 8. Well, this one's already done. 6/8 is already done, so I'm going to rewrite it exactly as it is, as 6/8. And I'm going to subtract it from, well, how do I change 1/4 to 8? Well, how do I go from 4 to 8? I multiply by 2. Oh, missed that there. Times 2. So this fraction now becomes renamed as 2/8. Alright, so then I follow my rules. So I've renamed all the fractions I need to rename. Step 2. Step 3 tells me to subtract my numerator, so I get 6 minus 2 is 4. And step 4 says keep my denominators the same. So I get 8. And step 5 says to reduce as necessary. So I go through and I decide that I can reduce both of these numbers by dividing each of them by 4. So I divide 4 divided by 4 gives me 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So our original problem says 6/8 minus 1/4, and we know that 6/8 minus 1/4 is 1/2. Okay, so let's move on. Another quick example here, and let's do 9/12 minus 3/8. Okay. And now we notice, okay, that we can either use our LCM or multiply our denominators. But we know, or I know, and hopefully you know, that 8 times 12 is 96. And that's a pretty big denominator, so we don't really want to mess with that. So let's try and find an LCM. So we know it's 12, 24, 36, 48. So I'll list the first few. All right, then I list my multiples of 8 as 8, 16, 24. Oh, found it. Right there. 24 is my least common multiple, and it's going to be a good common denominator to use. So now I'm going to change both, or rename both of these fractions as fractions over 24. Well, how did I go from 12 to 24? I multiplied by 2. So I have to multiply the denominator by 2. I have to multiply the numerator by 2. So 9 times 2 is 18. And I went from 8 to 24 by multiplying by 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. 3 times 3 is 9. And now I follow my rules that say I rename the fraction step 2. Step 3 asks me to step 3 asks me to subtract my numerator. So 18 minus 9 is 9. and I keep my denominators the same as in step 4 tells me. Step 5 asks me to reduce as necessary. So, can I divide 9 by 2? No. Can I divide 9 by 3? Yes. Well, then I need to check. Can I divide 24 by 3? Yes. So, I need to divide both of those numbers by 3 over 3 to reduce the lowest terms. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So now we found that 9/12 minus 3/8 is 3/8. Okay? Alright, so let's try one where we don't use LCM. So we're going to try 5/6 minus 3/5. Right. And how are we going to find a common denominator? Well, we can do LCM, but as you notice, that if I list the first 6, or if I list the multiples of 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, that my fifth multiple is going to be what they share, and I go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Well, I found them right there, but I should have known that the first number as a multiple of 6 that ends in 5 or 0 is going to be divisible by 5, or a multiple of 5, because we know our divisibility rules. So what I need to do is convert both of these fractions, or rename them to fractions over the denominator of 30. So how do I go from 6 to 30? I'm going to multiply by 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. And in this problem here, I go from 5 to 30 by multiplying by 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. So now my problem tells me just to subtract as normal, step 3, subtract my numerators. 25 minus 18 is 7. Oops, sorry about that. 7, and I keep my denominator the same. 30ths. Well, I go through my divisibility rules, try to reduce. 7 does not divide by 2, not by 3, not by 5. It does divide by 7 and itself, but then does 30 divide by 7? No. So then we know that 7/30 is my final answer. Alright. Last one we're going to do together. Alright, let's go blue. So we will do 10/12 minus 1/5. Okay. So now we again know that it's going to be really hard for us to find a common multiple, because as we go through and we count. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to go right to multiplying those denominators. So 12 times 5 is 60. So I'm going to rename, step 2, rename both of these fractions right here as fractions over 60. So how did I go from 12 to 60? I multiplied by 5. So 10 times 5 is 50. And how did I go from 5 to 60? Is I multiplied by 12. So 1 times 12 is 12. So I subtract them. Step 3 says subtract my numerators. And then I know that that gives me 38. There you go. And 60 is my denominator, stays the same. And that's step 4. Step 5 says to reduce. Well, let's see, does 38 and 60 divide by 2? Yes, they do. So I divide each of these by 2. And I get 38 divided by 2 is 19. And 60 divided by 2 is 30. And then I know that 19 does not divide by 2, 3, 5, or 7. It does divide by itself, 19, but 19 does not split 30 up evenly. So then we know that 19/30 is my final answer. All right. So the practice problems I'm going to give you today will be our warm-up tomorrow as you walk into class and we get started. So we will check those. and I'll probably throw 1 or 2 up for you to work on with a partner after that. So let's do 2 practice problems tonight. Take it easy on you. Let's do 8/15 minus 1/5. Okay, and I'll give you a hint here as you're listening. Multiplying 15 by 5 is going to be kind of messy, so make sure that you're using not the multiplying denominator's way of finding common denominator, but I want you to think about what that is. Second problem is going to be 6/7 minus 4/6. Okay. 4/7 minus, or excuse me, 6/7 minus 4/6. So get those 2 done as practice tonight. We'll do about 2 or 3 tomorrow as practice in class when we check these. All right. As always, make sure that you have everything written down, and good luck.